Hey everybody, Austin back again with another Let's Play video. Today, as you can see, it's going to be Primal Rage for the 3DO platform. Now, I don't want to say Panasonic 3DO because really 3DO it's multiple types of devices, including Gold Star's unit, as you see here, as well as Panasonic and in some other regions, LG and whatnot, even though they're the same company as Gold Star, I believe. But yeah, we are basically going to be playing the 3DO version of Primal Rage. Now, Primal Rage was actually an arcade game. I played it a lot when it was new, and even when it wasn't so new. You know, if I saw it in an arcade, I would play it because it's much like Mortal Kombat, much like Killer Instinct, much like Street Fighter. It was a fighting game in the arcade I just really enjoyed, and you know, and still to this day I play it occasionally. And yeah, so the 3DO version is obviously a home conversion of the arcade game. It's pretty lacking in some areas. It's not, you know, the worst version of Primal Rage you can play, but it's far from the best you can play either. And I'm going to be talking a little more about that as we progress through this Let's Play video. Now I'm going to go ahead and let the intro roll out. And unfortunately, one of the complaints I have about the 3DO version of Primal Rage, and I believe this is also apparent in the Saturn and possibly PlayStation versions as well, maybe even the Jag CD version, I don't remember, it's been a long time since I played that one. In this home conversion, they decided to make these brand new cutscenes with then new CG, you know, animations and whatnot, and they really kind of suck. They're really cheesy, and it sort of cheapens the experience, I feel. The original arcade intro, which is also in here, but you don't know until you go to the options menu and toggle it off, is much better than this CG stuff. It's nice 2D art and whatnot, just like the arcade game. This, though, it is, just wait till you see the dinosaurs appear on screen. It really just cheapens you know, the intro. I'm not sure why they felt the need to add this back then. I mean, the arcade intro was just fine, but this is one of my complaints with this version of the game, as well as, again, the Saturn, and I think the PlayStation version might also have these cutscenes as well. But the 3DO version in particular has some other issues going on. It's got some frame rate choppiness. It's got you've basically got to have a specialized third-party controller if you want to get the actual original arcade button layout, which fortunately I do. I have a what company makes this? Interact. That's right. They were a pretty popular third-party controller provider back in the day, and I basically have their 3DO, one of their 3DO control pads. It might actually be the only control pad they make. I'm not 100% sure. But it basically has 4 face buttons and 2 shoulder keys, much like, it's basically laid out like a Super Nintendo controller. And, yeah. And we're going to basically be going to the options menu. So here's basically kind of what the game looks like in motion. This is the demo. In some instances, it's nice and smooth. In other instances, usually most instances, it's kind of choppy. And that sort of choppy nature, it might actually be kind of hard to see in the video itself because, you know, when we upload these videos to YouTube, YouTube basically compresses the video and it basically cuts out half the frames. So you're not going to see the choppiness as well as you would if you were playing it in person. But a lot of 3DO games had this just general choppy nature to how objects would move across the screen, basically like the overarching frame rate. And Primal Rage is a perfect example of that. And 3DO is C, make sure you go back, apparently. Even though 3DO basically has a back and forward button, or I'm sorry, an X and P button. So let's go ahead and press A to get into options. Animations. Yes, I guess apparently it doesn't save your options, because I actually had I had played this last night and I had modified my controls. Yeah, it doesn't modify them, or doesn't save them. And I forgot which one I used. Was it 18 or... This is another one of my issues with not just this version of Primal Rage, but I'm pretty sure all home versions of this game they just have these preset layouts. And on the 3DO version in particular, you've got these weird button naming conventions. You've got A, B, C, X, L, R, X, and P. And it's just like, if only I could just like be like, okay, I want low fierce to be A, and just press the A button and map it that way. But you apparently can't do that in this one. And I totally forgot which button set I had last night. I think it was actually one of these. Let me try this again. All right. So Primal Rage uses slightly unconventional naming conventions for their attacks. You have high quick, high fierce, and low fierce. And the lows are basically the bottom two buttons, and the highs are basically the high two buttons. Primal Rage in the arcade used a straight 4-button layout. Or not straight, but it used a 4-button layout, kind of like a square. So you'd have 2 buttons on the top, 2 buttons on the bottom. If you're familiar with Tekken, it's kind of like that, except in Tekken, it's high left, high right, or button 1, button 2, and then low left, low right. It was, you know, and your low buttons were kicks. Primal Rage is kind of like that, but not really. It's kind of similar. So I need to figure out, that is high quick, high fierce, A and B, that's correct. With how this third-party controller X, which is normally the back button in this game, is actually where B would be on the Super Nintendo controller. So low quick is on X, which is correct, and low fierce is on C. Alright, this is the one I want. So I'm going to go ahead and hit A and select it. Perfect. So now my button layout is actually like it is in the arcade, and it's really the only way I can play Primal Rage. I had the Atari Jaguar CD version a long time ago, and in that version you can't play it like the arcade version in the same button layout without having a pro controller. And it was a very frustrating experience trying to play it on the Jag CD. I did not have a pro controller, and pro controllers are absurdly expensive. Fortunately, third-party 3DO control pads are not that expensive. I'm going to go ahead and let the intro, the real intro, roll out since I turned off the cutscenes. So here's what the arcade intro would be like. You know, it's just nice 2D visuals, some good artwork and so forth. Pretty cool visuals. I've always loved the visuals in Primal Rage, and so basically what kind of happens is something like a meteor crashes into Earth, it wakes up some apparently dormant gods or whatever, and then basically what happens is they gain followers of what remaining humans are left, and then they try to duke it out to, you know, each one wants to basically conquer and rule the thus new rearranged Earth. So, pretty simplistic story as well. I always thought it was kind of a cool story. It was kind of unique compared to some of the other games. It wasn't just like a tournament, you know, a bunch of like hotshot fighters are competing in or something like that. So it's more or less like world domination in a way. So one of the cool things about Primal Rage is home conversions, and I believe most of the versions, if not all, had these options. You have training modes, tug of war, totally forgot what that is. Endurance, I think, is kind of like, might be like survival mode or something like that. You obviously have the versus mode, but obviously we're going to be playing the arcade mode. And I'd like to preface this with sort of a disclaimer, and that disclaimer is I'm probably not going to beat this game, but, you know, to be fair, that's actually not the first time I've ever said that doing a Let's Play, where I say I'm probably not going to beat the game, but I end up beating the game. So we'll kind of just pick a character, see where it goes from here. I'm going to play as Chaos starting off. He's my favorite or second favorite character in the game. I like playing as Chaos or Blizzard, sort of the palette swapped characters. And Blizzard is a little bit like Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. Right here, that's Blizzard. And yeah, so those are my two favorite characters in the game. Blizzard was the first character I played as when this was in the arcades. And then I eventually moved on to Diablo, which is right here. He's sort of like a smaller version of Sauron. But he's flame-based, he's fire-based. So, all the characters, despite Chaos and Blizzard sort of being like palette-swapped versions of each other, kind of like the Scorpion and Sub-Zero of Mortal Kombat, all the characters in Primal Rage are actually pretty varied. So you only have 7 characters, but the movesets between each characters are actually quite different from one another, which gives the character selection a nice bit of variety. And each character has quite a bit of moves as well, and combos, and you got fatalities, which I don't remember how to do, so you're not going to see those, but yeah. So if you've never played Primal Rage, hopefully after you watch this video, you'll have a pretty good idea of what it's like. But again, be warned that this is not the ideal version to play. It's got some cool, it replicates the arcade 2D aspects of it pretty well, like, you know, the intro and whatnot. Some of the backgrounds are there, but they are lacking quite a bit in some details. But you know, the kicker with this version of Primal Rage is the frame rate, and it really does not give a sort of great indication of what Primal Rage is really like in its true form, which is basically the arcade version. So yeah, in the microphone, you're probably going to be hearing a lot of controller knacks as well, and clacks and whatever, because yeah, I've got the controller kind of close to the microphone, and my condenser microphone just pretty much picks up anything in the room anyway, so you would pretty much hear it even if I was all the way across the room playing. That's how my microphone works. So, alright, there we go. I'm trying to make sure I don't have, like, auto attack and stuff like that on. You know, I played this game last night. It was actually the first time I played the 3DO version of Primal Rage in years. I mean, it's probably been at least 3 years since I last played it. When I sort of went back on my 3DO kick after a long hiatus. So, you know, one of the reasons I'm actually doing this Let's Play is kind of, for one, I actually wanted to do a Primal Rage Let's Play for a while. I actually was recently playing the PlayStation version as well, and then I also thought about doing the arcade version on the Midway Arcade Treasures 2 for Xbox. But what really got me to do this was a forum thread that was started on the 3DO Zone forums, or 3DO Zone. And it's a pretty nice 3DO forum. It's kind of small, but it's got a nice sort of regular community that, you know, for the most part, they are pretty awesome people. And one of the topics that frequently comes up is Primal Rage and how much it sucks, because most of the people there don't like Primal Rage. And but you know, Primal Rage is again, it's an arcade game. I played a lot back in the day, and you know, as a result, you know, I've really enjoyed the game over the years. I played it a lot over the years, just like with Mortal Kombat and Killer Instinct. You know, I was a very young teenager when all these games came out, and you know, I had a lot of time to kill, and fighting games were kind of like a really big part of my sort of formative years, you know, playing arcade games. And but a lot of those guys, they don't like a lot of those fighting games, and Primal Rage is kind of at the bottom of the list for a lot of them. And you know, they'll say Primal Rage sucks, and then I'll try to defend it, just like you know, fans of specific games do. And you know, we've actually had kind of an interesting debate over there. Not really debate, but you know, a lot of the people in this forum thread have given pretty nice, involved, in-depth, you know, outlooks on this game. And then we also got into some debate about you know, which versions hold up the best. Is the 3DO a nice version, or was it a rushed version of Primal Rage? And, you know, I was spouting off some, you know, I was talking about the qualities of the game, mostly speaking truly just from memory, because I hadn't played this specific version in, again, probably about 3 years, possibly even 4 years now, I don't remember. And, you know, so that got me to actually bust out this version again. I actually had my 3DO hooked up for quite a while, and I haven't really used it much lately. But, you know, thanks to that forum thread, I decided to go ahead and bust out the Primal Rage disc, give it a shot again, and see if my memory is actually legitimate or not. And it turned out my memory was not. It was, I thought the 3DO version of Primal Rage had a much smoother frame rate, but it's actually kind of choppy. It's a little bit like Way of the Warrior in terms of, you know, how like choppily the characters kind of bounce across the screen. Fortunately, the physics aren't nearly as floaty and weird as Way of the Warrior, so it's definitely still a lot easier to play. But there was that. There was also the fact that, you know, some of the backgrounds weren't as detailed as I remember them being. There was also the really crappy full motion video that I mentioned at the beginning. Totally forgot about that. Again, I thought that wasn't actually in the 3DO version. And it's things like that. So I went back to the forum thread, talked about, you know, what the game is actually like from a fresh perspective. And, you know, I told them, hey, I might end up doing a Let's Play as well. So here we are now. And so now I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. You know, this is kind of like for the forum thread. But at the same time, it's, you know, I'm getting my Primal Rage Let's Play out of the way at the same time. So, man, I totally forgot how hard it was to play a fighting game and talk at the same time. I mean, I did a Tekken Tag Let's Play just recently, a few weeks back. But that game isn't, it's not as fast-paced as Primal Rage. Like, Primal Rage, especially when you're playing the CPU, you've kind of got to be on your A game, at least on the default setting or higher. So, Tekken Tag, I was just kind of breezing through that as I was talking about it, but, so, yeah. Now, Primal Rage is, you know, much like Mortal Kombat, it uses a variety of special moves that will actually completely stun your opponents. Now, Chaos is a character that has a total stun move, and it's basically a fart. He bends over, he farts, and it's a little raunchy, it's a little kind of out there, and I think some people actually don't like the game as a result of some things like that. But yeah, if you're into Mortal Kombat and you never played Primal Rage, you might actually dig Primal Rage because it has a similar sort of you know, setup in a way with how some of its special moves work. Blizzard, for instance, as I mentioned, he's sort of like the Sub-Zero of the game. He's got multiple freeze moves where if you touch them, you get frozen for about a split second, and he has a quick window or a short window of time to basically do a ton of free damage on you. And I think there's a couple other moves in the game as well that will do the same thing. Sauron has like some kind of fireball of some sort. I don't know if it stuns you or if it's just like a fireball, but there we go. You also have kind of like your typical fireball motions for some characters, things like that. But yeah, one of my favorite things about Primal Rage, though, is it's kind of hard to see right now because the computer blocks like almost everything. And there we go. Is you've got a pretty decent combo system in this game. And trying to do one of his fatalities, the one where he basically urinates on the the character and dissolves their entire body. But it's called the Golden Shower. That's like the infamous fatality of the game. But it's not working. It wasn't working for me last night. I don't know if they chopped it out of this version or if maybe if I'm just doing it wrong. I could just be doing it wrong. I always forget how to do it. But yeah, one of my favorite things about Primal Rage is its combo system. And you can actually watch really involved combo videos on Primal Rage as a whole. You know, a variety of versions and whatnot being covered in it. And you could do some really impressive stuff in it. So when Primal Rage kind of gets knocked because it uses dinosaurs and whatnot, and you know, it's claymation, and which I still think is really cool today, is the claymation aspect. Everything looks really cool, but the combo system is actually it's nice. There's huge strings you can do. I mean, some of these guys in these combo videos are just doing like totally absurd combos, and it's pretty impressive stuff. And you know, and it's all manual combos. It's not like auto combos like in Killer Instinct, and it's also it's not dial-a combos like in Mortal Kombat. It's very flexible. You know, you can sit around in practice mode or playing against a second player and just try different strings and see what connects and what doesn't. And try to improvise as you play more and get used to certain strings working with one another. It's pretty nice. And then you combine, you know, your special moves. You've got your fatalities and stuff. It's kind of a good mixture between something like Mortal Kombat, a little bit like Street Fighter, and a little bit of its sort of own thing. And overall, I think Primal Rage is actually a pretty solid fighter as a whole. And the game was actually pretty popular back in the day, and I think it was pretty much popular for good reason. It doesn't get you know, not a whole lot of people really respect this game much today. And you know, like I think Screw Attack listed it as like the 9th worst fighting game of all time, and it's just like, really, guys, you haven't played like Shadow War of Succession, Rise of the Robots, you know, even Way of the Warrior really kind of sucks, and there's just so many like cheap efforts out there, and I don't know. Primal Rage definitely is not seen in a very good light these days, and I don't know. As someone that kind of grew up with the game, maybe it's just easier for me to see otherwise, and I actually played the game in the arcade. I didn't just shun it for Virtua Fighter or Killer Instinct or Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, or whatever. I played everything back then, so let's go ahead and hit start. Gonna have to continue, and I'm gonna go ahead and continue playing as Chaos actually, because again, I'm talking and playing at the same time, and I'm definitely not focusing like I normally would. Although some characters in the game are really difficult, but Blizzard usually isn't one that's really that difficult for me, even when I'm playing as Chaos. I mean, he just shoots out his sort of ice breath, but he doesn't really... Whoa, I don't think that was supposed to connect. He doesn't really have anything that can like go through my projectiles that easily, so I can just sort of try to fart at him like that, get a bunch of free damage off, or screw it up like I just did. And yeah. Now, one thing I've always done in Primal Rage, and I figured this out pretty early when I was a teenager, is that pretty much everything does chip damage, or guard damage, or block damage in this game. So even if I don't really connect with an attack, I still continue attacking, because even when they block, it still takes a nice little chunk of life away, especially if you hit them 2 or 3 times in a row. And then all you need to do is just hit them once more once their life is at 0. They can keep blocking infinitely once their life is at 0, but the second you get a normal hit, they're dead. So it's basically like that. Or once their life is down to 0 and you can't hit them, you can at least let time run out, and as long as your life bar is a little bit higher than theirs, you'll win. So that's kind of how I go through the single player game. Doing a 2-player versus game would be a little bit different, you know, because you're playing with a live human being that is not going to probably block every single damn thing you do. You know, this is going to be more like a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing, and a back and forth. And unfortunately, when you play against the CPU, there's a lot of them just blocking, especially if you jump in, you know, things like that. So I'm making this game look kind of boring compared to what it would be like playing against a normal human opponent. But again, that's just Primal Rage in single player mode. Mortal Kombat is kind of a bit of the same way in terms of sort of its boring nature. Got him. Can't do it. It's not working. Like in the Mortal Kombat series, opponents will basically just do things that are pretty much impossible from a human perspective. Like they'll do standing uppercuts. They'll always sweep you if you get too close and try to punch or something. They'll do almost like a standing sweep. It's like they'll just immediately sweep, even though like they haven't gone through those frames of animation to get into the sweeping animation. It's, you know, they have frame advantages when they do it. Yeah, Primal Rage is a little bit like that. And the CPU opponents you play against, they can be a little predictable in terms of like, if I do Blizzard's Fart, they always jump over it in certain cases. Or like, if I'm playing against Armadon, who's basically the Triceratops character, he'll always jump over it and use his downward spike slam where he basically gouges you with his spikes, slamming down onto the ground. But the problem is, you can't really get into him, you can't jump, because he'll always do his upward spikes from the ground, which, yeah, unblockable if you're jumping in. And things like that. So you just kind of sit there, and it's just, it's almost like playing against Baraka in Mortal Kombat 2, where if you try to jump in, he does his blade attack that, you know, the scissors one, which does a lot of damage. If you try to jump away, he'll do his projectile with his blade projectile. If you try to get it in sweep, he'll throw you somehow, which is impossible in a regular single-player game, or I'm sorry, multiplayer game. And it's just things like that. And Primal Rage can be a bit cheap in that regard as well, in the same kind of way. I don't know if I was really clear with that. I'm kind of actually tired right now. I've just come off doing a 12-hour shift at work, and I'm doing a Let's Play, which I don't normally do. But yeah, I'm a little bit tired right now. So yeah, Primal Rage, the AI isn't the best. So like I said, I'm sounding like a broken record now, as I usually do, is, you know, it's probably not the most enjoyable single-player experience. But yeah. I actually don't know anybody that plays Primal Rage, let alone really enjoys the game anymore. So it's like, you know, for the majority of my Primal Rage lifespan, as me being a gamer enjoying the game, I very rarely played this game with somebody else. Did I do it? I don't think I did it. Oh. Yeah, I did it. That is one of his quote-unquote fatalities. It's not really a fatality, but so long as there's water in the background, you can make Chaos basically walk up and do a cannonball into the water. And it's almost like a friendship in Mortal Kombat. But I think he's the only character that has something like that. And that was always kind of funny, because not every stage has water. And on Talon's level, the jungle with like a waterfall in the background, you have to, oh, here we are. You have to be in front of the waterfall to be able to do it. If you're too far off, you won't be able to do it. So, I always thought that was kind of funny. Now, Talon's one of my least favorite characters to play against, because he's so small that he can duck a lot of your attacks. He's very hard to hit, and he's very fast, and if he blocks any of your attacks, he can just counterattack right away. You usually get a nice little string off that really does some damage against you. And I oftentimes have to be kind of lucky when I'm playing against the CPU, because again, like I said, they block almost everything, and they can counterattack right away, and it's tough to play against them safely. What I usually do is just get in and do quick attacks, like a jump kick, you know? And if I connect with the jump kick, I will go into this move here, which is both low buttons together. But if the basic kick doesn't connect, I don't do it, and I just sweep him like this, or hit him with my hand. Because again, like I mentioned, every hit, even when they block, still does some damage. So, you know, I take advantage of that. Sometimes you can just hit them 3 times in a row, even when they're blocking, and you'll basically take a normal hit's worth between those 3 hits as they're blocking, because the block damage adds up. It's nice. So just like right there, I took a nice little chunk of health off. Oh, and I wanted to do the cannonball, but just like Mortal Kombat, once they go into the fatality portion, if you hit them, it ends. You can't try to do the fatality. You get basically one chance to do it, and if you hit them first, your chance is over. So. So, one of the complaints about Primal Rage that some people have is sort of the unconventional way to do moves, and that's something I sort of wanted to touch up on as well as I play this game. And one of the interesting things about Primal Rage, and it's not something that ever bothered me, I thought it was kind of neat, is to do moves in this game, aside from your regular normal moves, like right here, left, I'm sorry, high quick. High quick does basically just like a basic punch like this. You know, high fierce does another one, but with the opposite hand. things like that. Pretty basic stuff. They're basically called just normal moves. You press a face button and you do an attack, just like in Street Fighter. You know, you press high kick and Ken does like a sort of a high roundhouse kick, you know, something like that. Primal Rage, just like pretty much every other fighting game, has that. You've also got moves where you can press both two buttons together. Like if I press both high punches together, Chaos as well as Blizzard would do like a sort of like a roundhouse, I don't want to call it a roundhouse, but like a spinning upper punch, which is really useful. And then if you do the same thing with the kicks but ducking, you'll do this nice sweep attack. Let's see if I can do it. So this is both top punches together, and you can actually link that from your regular punches. So I can go punch and then press both punches together just like that. See? And you can kind of keep it going if you want. And so you kind of get an idea of the strings in this game. The sweeping attack is really nice because if you actually connect with it, the enemy flies up into the air just a tiny bit. And with Chaos, he's got a move where he does this forward shoulder slam, and it'll actually pick the enemy back up. And you saw me do it earlier on in the video. It's a combo I used to do a lot as a teenager. And so you'll basically do a low sweep, do the shoulder slam, they'll fly up into the air, and then you can do ducking and press both punches together, and he'll do like this rising sort of two-hand uppercut style thing, and that'll connect and do even more damage. So now one of the gimmicks in Primal Rage was that you could actually eat your followers, and I always thought that was pretty hilarious. And you can actually do that mid-battle, which is, I always thought was pretty cool. You can try to get you can actually get your life back a little bit in battle. It's risky though, because you sit there and you're munching on humans, and your opponent can basically just wail on you and get free hits on you. I always thought that was really fun. You can also smack the humans back and forth, and if you're in a two-player game, if you guys smack them back and forth long enough, you'll actually do a, you'll go into like, I think like a volleyball net comes up, and you can play volleyball with the humans, just smack them back and forth. I always thought that was hilarious. So, alright, we're basically on the final level of the game. There is no final boss in this game. I believe there was actually supposed to be in the arcade version, but you know, he never came to fruition. They never made another update that included the final boss. And so what Primal Rage has is basically just like one long endurance match as the final stage in the game. And that's basically what we're at right now. And I want to say you do a little more damage to your opponents in the final battle, or the world domination, or whatever you call it. And there's a little bit of load time between matches, unfortunately. Obviously in the arcade version you don't have that, so yet another reason why the arcade version is great. And that was a bad idea. See, Vertigo is one of those characters where if I try to do my stun attack, or Blizzard's fart, Vertigo can, she's a little, it's actually a female if you believe it. She can actually do some things like Raiden from Mortal Kombat, and like teleport on the other side of you and things like that. That she can teleport right in front of you to fake you out. So yeah, and she's got really long reach too. So if I try to do like a projectile, she'll teleport behind me and then do her sort of razor blade tail attack. And look at this, Talon, yay. One of my least favorite characters to play against, like I said. And I could have just got a free sweep. And again, I probably could have gotten another free hit. When they block an attack, sort of the little bounce when I connect with them, or the little light that, I don't even know what to call it, the little sprite that appears showing that I've made contact, it'll be like a sort of greenish color if they block my attack. But if it's blue, it means I actually connected successfully, and I can link that into a different kind of attack as a combo. And so you have to be really quick about that to tell whether you've actually hit them or not. Oh, great. So, before this battle, you have to basically feed on people, and when you feed on people, it basically builds up an alternate health bar to basically give you 2 health bars to get through all 7 characters in the game. And so that's basically what happened. I lost my main life bar, and so my secondary life bar appeared and filled up. It only fills up to as much as you eat on the prior sort of bonus stage, and I was able to fill it up to a little over 80%, which was good. So, all right, let's see if I can do this. I know I still have to fight Armadon and Sauron, I believe, but it might not happen. I don't know if I can continue right away or if I have to do the whole thing over again. I don't remember. In the arcade version, you can just continue again by pumping in more quarters. Ow. Oh yeah, it looks like I just continued. I was like mashing buttons and the choppiness of this version of the game makes it harder to do combos. The combos from the other versions are still there as far as I can see. Like, my main combo still works, which I haven't really done. Usually I do a jumping kick, I will do the downwards thing, hit him again, then sweep, do the shoulder slam. This will be either Armadon or Sauron. Diablo was the first character I played against. Yep, Sauron. Sauron's actually one of the easiest characters for me to fight against. His moves really aren't, you know, that risky. There we go, that's a nice one. And the people in the background, even though there aren't any people right now, they go, yay, if you do a combo. Like, they sound super thrilled. Like, sarcastically. Alright, so now it's going to be Armadon. And I hope I get my second life bar back. I'm not sure if I will. I did. Got it back. Now, Chaos also has a projectile, actually. And, damn. And I think that's it. Yeah. You're the master of the new Earth. With a U. And I'm pretty sure it gives the original arcade ending since I turned the animations off. Yep, that's the original arcade ending. That's great. The endings were very simplistic, much like Mortal Kombat. You only got a single picture or two in a wall of text. And some of these characters, like Chaos is kind of like one of the good people in the game, even though he's dirty. Blizzard as well is also good. But like Diablo and Sauron, they're they like just devastate like whatever humans are left on the planet, and you see them like tearing through them, and it's interesting. It's kind of cool. I always thought it was pretty neat. I don't remember if Vertigo was good or bad, or good or evil, I guess I should say, or Talon. I don't remember if he was good or evil as well. Armadon, I think he might have been good. I don't remember. So, But I always kind of enjoyed the story in this game. It's not really that complicated. It's basic, much like Mortal Kombat, but it sort of just gets things right where it needs to, and it's kind of cool for it. Sorry for this Let's Play being sort of all over the place, guys. But when you're playing sort of like a fast-paced fighting game, it's definitely harder to sort of focus on what you're saying. But one thing I actually trailed off on that I totally forgot to wrap up was the control aspect of the game. You know, I mentioned some things like strings and just basically basic attacks by pressing your buttons or combining buttons to do different variations of attacks. But one of the things that people don't like about this game that I hear often the most complained about is that to do things like your projectiles, basically your actual special moves, is you have to actually hold down the button, or multiple buttons typically in Primal Rage, and then do the motion. So for Blizzard's fart attack, I have to hold the top right button and the lower left button together. It's sort of like a diagonal position, and then rotate the D-pad counterclockwise. And whereas in a game like Street Fighter, you would rotate it counterclockwise and then press the button. Or if you wanted to do a fireball, you do down to down forward, then forward, or quarter circle forward, then press a button. In Primal Rage, it's the opposite. You hold the button, then do the quarter circle forward motion. And that's something that actually throws a lot of people off. And as a result, they don't like the game because they want to be able to jump in and try to just throw fireballs like in Mortal Kombat, like in Street Fighter, to a degree, like in Killer Instinct, and like SNK fighters. But Primal Rage isn't like that. Now, what's actually kind of interesting is that in the arcade, the final update to the game actually changed that to where you could actually, a lot of the moves would be controlled by doing the motion first, then pressing the button. And, that's cool and all, but I still prefer to play the old way because that's really how the game was designed. You don't need to be able to toss out a fireball by doing the motion first and pressing the button. It's hard to explain, but the game was, again, kind of designed around this different aspect where you hold the buttons and then do the motion. And, what's kind of interesting about that, people say, oh, I might get hit or something like that. Well, if you're sitting there and you're holding the button and you're getting ready to do the move, well, if you see someone jumping in, you realize, hey, I probably shouldn't do the move, you can block. Because you're already just sitting there holding the buttons. You're probably moving the D-pad anyway. Just hold back and block. And that's really, how the game works. It's, I like how it operates, but that's just me. You might not like how it operates. But, yeah, that's just me. So, anyway, there we have it, guys. Primal Rage in the 3DO. As you can see, it's not... If you play the arcade version, if you've played other versions, you can see it's not a god-awful version of the game. I mean, I just beat the game, which I was not planning on doing. But I basically just ran through the game. It's totally playable. It's one of the more playable fighting games in the 3DO. You've got Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which is easily the most playable fighting game on the system. Then you've got Samurai Showdown. And then after that, there's a lot of mediocre fighting games. So I would put Primal Rage sort of next in line as far as playable fighting games. I mean, obviously Samurai Showdown and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, they're going to be like your AAA fighting games in the system. And then after that, you sort of have lower tier fighting games. But Primal Rage is sort of like that next one. It's definitely not the best version you'll ever play of the game, but it's still playable. It's a little choppy in the frame rate. It controls well, though, with the third-party controller as I'm using. And yeah, if you've got a 3DO and you want another fighting game, you might want to give Primal Rage a try, maybe. Although if you have a Sega Saturn, I would definitely recommend that version over this. Or if you want a really, really cheap version that is the closest to the arcade game, if you have an original Xbox, check out the Midway Arcade Treasures Volume 2. It is by far the closest to the arcade game, the biggest sprites, the best animation, no load times, no crappy full motion video. It's just the arcade version. And it's actually the last edition of the ROM, so if you're the kind of person that wants to play with the Street Fighter style moveset, you can play that way as well. So, you might actually end up enjoying the game more because you don't have to Again, like I said, hold down the buttons and then do the motions. But yeah, 3DO version still a half decent version. But you know, there are cheaper alternatives if you want to play Primal Rage, and better, cheaper alternatives. Like, again, the Xbox Midway Arcade Treasures 2. It's also, that compilation is actually also on the PS2, but that version of Primal Rage is a little, I think it's a little choppy, it's a little rough along the edges, as well as the Mortal Kombats in that collection. You're best off doing the Xbox ones. And I think that collection might have also been on the GameCube, but I don't remember how the Primal Rage and Mortal Kombats turned out on that. I never played the GameCube compilation of Midway Arcade Treasures 2. So, anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I want to say thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, despite the discombobulation of my talking at parts. But anyway, I'll be back with another Let's Play sometime soon, or another video of some sort. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.